second visit within a week, and Omani delegation is in Sana'a to discuss with Houthis reviving truce efforts. The U.S. Navy announces it has seized smuggled Iranian arms meant for the Houthi militia. Government forces defend Houthi attack in Ma'rib province. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fuad. Omani mediators returned to Sana'a for the second time in 2 weeks. According to sources, the delegation is expected to transmit responses of the Saudis on the conditions proposed previously by the Houthis to renew the truce. The following report has more details.
The Omani delegation mediating between the international and local parties aiming to establish peace in Yemen has started a new visit to Sana'a, the second in order to achieve a negotiating breakthrough in order to return to the humanitarian truce sponsored by the United Nations last year. Informed sources in the Houthi-controlled capital Sana'a stated that the Omani delegation this time brings proposals and responses about the new demands and conditions that the Iranian-backed Houthi militia put before the delegation during its visit last December to Sana'a. During the past visit of the Omani delegation, the militia had placed a number of hard conditions regarding its acceptance of the return to an extended and expanded truce, including the full opening of the international navigation to and from Sana'a airport and lifting the naval blockade on the port of Hodeida. The terrorist militia also stipulated that the salaries of all employees, including its terrorist elements and those who had been naturalized in its ranks, be paid from the oil and gas revenues under the control of the Yemeni government, away from the oil revenues from Hodeida ports and the revenues of the areas it controls. The Omani visit comes in conjunction with movements in Washington by elements of the Islah Party loyal to the Muslim Brotherhood, aimed at supporting the negotiating positions of the Houthi militia and opening new windows away from the international and regional efforts and against the Arab coalition and the Yemeni government. It also comes in light of the escalation of the Houthi terrorist attacks in several Yemeni regions, affecting economic facilities and civilian areas, as well as direct threats to the international navigation by deploying weapons in marine routes.
The Chief of the General Staff, Saghir bin Aziz, witnessed the inauguration of the new training year in the 6th Military Region. Bin Aziz reiterated that the new year will be the year of victory, regaining the state and the overthrow of the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorist group. This report has more.
The Houthi militia escalates its military operations on several fronts in Ma'rib and Al-Jawf governorates, such as the fronts of Al-Amud, Dana, Al-Akkad, Ramla, and the east of Al-Balaq. They were the sites where the militias skirmished with various attacks, in order to achieve military progress equivalent to their field movements that they achieved last year. But their hopes were disappointed, and they were shocked by the fire of the tribesmen and the government forces who stood in the way of these attempts, leaving dozens of dead and wounded people among that group.
طبعا المعارك الجارية هي عبارة عن طبعا تركيز للميليشيات.
The current battles are on the southern front of Ma'rib Governorate, and the rest of fronts are skirmishes with drones as well as with artillery and gunfire. The militia believes that the National Army is unaware, but the army is preparing for major battles, and the militias have noticed that the National Army has become stronger.
Over a full year of offensive attempts, here also the militia elements failed to reach the center of Raghwan district, which separates Ma'rib and Al-Jawf governorates, and other in Al-Alam fronts east of Al-Jawf, which have strategic importance linking International Ruwayq Road. The government forces say that they prepared a new highly trained force during the signed truce periods that strengthened their field presence, which they had never seen before in this form of military balance. Multitasking combat forces are fully prepared for any military operation, which may greatly change the equation of the upcoming battles.
القوات المسلحة مع السلام وتمد يدها للسلام لأن السلام هو أساس الحياة لكن نحن
The armed forces support peace as it is the core of life, but we are ready for the battle and for its resolution as well. Therefore, the army is standby and waiting any directives from the political and military leadership represented by President Rashad Al-Alimi. We are ready and confident to resolve the battle with the coalition, and the option of peace will remain open to us. Russia will not choose peace as an option unless the battle is resolved.
Fighting in Ma'rib and Al-Jawf is very different for those soldiers from any other place, especially since they fought a long battle against militia before. So what is the value of life without a homeland? When the Houthi militia reach their province, the armed forces are now more powerful, more tactical, and more solid, and well prepared to resolve the battle.
The U.S. Navy intercepted a fishing vessel in the Gulf of Oman. According to the Navy, the ship had on it smuggled Iranian arms, which were on their way to the Houthis. This is not the first time the U.S. Navy seizes such Iranian smuggled arms in the international waters. This confirms Tehran's direct support to the Houthis. The following report gives more details.
The U.S. Navy seized over 2,100 assault rifles from a ship in the Gulf of Oman. It is believed that these weapons came from Iran and were bound for the Iranian-backed Houthi militia. It was the latest capture of weapons allegedly heading to the Arab world's poorest country. The seizure happened after a team from the U.S.-class coastal boat boarded a traditional wooden sailing vessel, and then they discovered the Kalashnikov rifles individually wrapped in green tarps aboard the ship. Experts said that these weapons appear to be Chinese-made, and the Type 56 rifles have been found in previously seized weapons. The Houthi militia is trying in various ways to smuggle these weapons, even though they have fallen into the hands of government forces several times, and tens of tons of them have been destroyed over the past years, while what was recently seized was destroyed and weapons were confiscated in favor of government forces. Iran has long denied arming the Houthis, even as it has been transferring rifles, rocket grenades, missiles, and other weaponry to the militia using sea routes. Independent experts, Western nations, and UN experts have traced components seized abroad other detained vessels back to Iran. Previous confessions of detained smugglers confirmed that Iran's continued arming of the Houthis was in flagrant violation and defiance of international law and relevant UN Security Council resolutions. Moreover, a Yemeni official clarified that Iran's role in undermining peace and its use of the militia as a means to kill Yemenis, destabilize Yemen, spread chaos and terrorism in the region, and threaten international interests. The official called on the international community, the UN, and permanent members of the Security Council to carry out their legal duties and issue a clear condemnation of the Iranian regime's destabilizing policies. He added that they must exert real pressure to end Iran's meddling in Yemeni affairs and its smuggling of weapons to the Houthi militia.
The United States stressed the need to immediately start implementing the United Nations emergency plan to rescue the West Safer tanker to Yemen. This came during a meeting between Wendy Sherman, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, and David Gressly, the United Nations Resident Coordinator and Humanitarian in Yemen. The United Nations announced it would start at the beginning of 2023, the implementation of the process of unloading oil from the Safer tanker. Government forces defended a violent attack by the terrorist Houthi militia on its position south of Ma'rib. The source explained that the government forces were able to thwart the Houthi attack after violent battles in which various types of weapons were used. The sources indicated that 10 Houthi militants, including a commander, were killed and others were wounded during the battles. 5 civilians were killed and injured when a Houthi camouflaged mine exploded south of Hodeidah. Local sources confirmed that 3 people, including 2 children, were killed, while 2 others, one of them a woman, was injured as a result of the mine explosion. In Lahj, one civilian was killed and two others were injured in a mine explosion. On the same day, two children were killed and a third was injured when a Houthi mine exploded in Nahm district east of Sana'a. A Yemeni human rights monitor announced that 16 civilians were killed and injured due to Houthi remnants of the war during the past 10 days. The monitor stated that since the beginning of January, 6 people have been killed, including 2 children and 7 injured in mine explosions and remnants of war in Hodeidah, Ma'rib and Al Jawf. Coming next. In a new move against Yemeni women, Houthis impose code of dress on women in the areas under their control.
ننشر ندي ماء من الغيل والغيلة بعيد، كنا ندي بالدواب نعبي ماء ورجعنا. كنا ننزل الساعة 5 رجعنا الساعة 9.
ما يجي لنا ظهر لأن زحمة ما حد يخلي الجهل يغرف وإحنا تعبنا زيادة.
وكنت أحس صدري يوجعني وعز قلبك ركبي يوجعيني.
كنا ما نستخدم حتى نغسل أولادنا إلا يعني بأيام معدودة.
كنت أغيب على المدرسة لأن كنت أروح الديمة.
حتى وإن كان يجي الأمطار تروح هدر لأنه ما في معي خزانة.
الوقت نشتري ب30,000 هي معها استهلاك ما يغلقش معها الشهر.
بس راح تطلب الله ولا أي حاجة، عاملة كل شغلك الماء.
Welcome back. The Iranian-backed terrorist Houthi militia in Sana'a imposed new restrictions and conditions on shops selling women's attires as part of a systematic and continuous campaign to target and restrict freedom of Yemeni women. More on this is within this report.
Women in Yemen cannot breathe. Houthis are completely controlling women like they are puppets. They are suffocating them with the rules and obligations. Yemeni women are forced into so many things like child marriage, domestic violence, and divorce shame. Imagine being shamed just for getting a divorce. Well, this is the reality in Yemen. According to a Yemeni journalist at Reuters, Houthis recently held a meeting in the Cultural Center in Sana'a to impose new rules and regulations on cloaks that women wear, or what is known as abaya. The new regulation is for shop owners to only sell loose black abayas with a veil, meaning no colored short or tight abayas. This is not the first time Houthis order women with their nonsense rules. They issued a mahram restriction which forbids women from traveling or moving with no male guardian. Yemeni women cannot even get an education or get a job. Because of these limitations, women are unable to express their concerns, including domestic violence. Yemeni women have limited access to information about their rights and are frequently excluded from decision-making. They are expected to support any decision made by a man, which frequently results in poor capacity for self-protection against assault and pressure. Gender inequality, social pressure, and systematic violations have all left Yemeni women extremely vulnerable to abuse and violence. The women in Yemen are being treated like objects. They are forced to live life according to the Houthi rebels' systematic ideology. These terrorists are putting so much pressure on society as a whole, and women in particular.
The International Organization for Migration said an estimated 73,233 migrants from the Horn of Africa arrived in Yemen last year. According to the organization, the number of migrants from Ethiopia reached 97%, while 3% was of a Somali nationality. The crisis cell formed by the PLC approved a number of measures to address economic and financial issues. In a meeting chaired by Prime Minister Ma'in Abdul Malik, the cell reviewed the current mechanisms to limit the catastrophic effects of the terrorist Houthi militia on oil installations and the freedom of global trade. The government raised the tax imposed on remittance 50%. According to the government, the move aims to enhance the finances of the state. Yet, the majority of the people would be affected by such measures, especially as many Yemeni families depend on external exchanges as source of income. This report has more details.
Economists warn of an economic catastrophe as a result of the government of Aden raising the price of the customs dollar, as the increase in the customs of imported materials will reach 50%, which will double the prices of consumer goods to 50% from what it is currently. Traders said that the raising of the US dollar's exchange rate used to calculate customs duties on non-essential goods by 50% effective Tuesday. The decision applies only to South Yemen, which the government controls, including the port of Aden, the country's main entry point of commodities. Hodeidah port is held by the Houthis, which has a different exchange system. Yemen imports most of its needs, with more than 7 years of war resulting in an economic collapse and leaving 80% of the population reliant on aid. Officials of Yemen's Federation of Chambers of Commerce confirmed the decision, adding that it went into effect on Tuesday. And according to sources, Yemen's cabinet meeting approved the decision to hike duties to 750 Yemeni riyals from 500 on January 8th. The amended rate for customs is still far below the current exchange rate of 1,250 riyals to the dollar in Aden, the government's interim seat, where protests have broken out over high prices and non-payment of wages. Fuel and other commodity prices spike in Aden and Ma'rib on Tuesday. Following the decision, wheat, rice, milk, and medicine are exempt from duties. It's certain that the government's decision to raise customs will burden the citizens, who suffer from the cost of living crisis, especially in the light of the weakness and absence of regulatory, governing, and controlling agencies.
Minister of Planning discussed with the Executive Vice President of the Global Community Participation and Resilience Fund strengthening aspects of partnership. The minister affirmed Yemen's aspiration to partner with the fund to improve social and economic conditions by creating job opportunities and supporting small and medium enterprises. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. a second visit within a week, an Omani delegation is in Sana'a to discuss with Houthis reviving truce efforts. The U.S. Navy announces it has seized smuggled Iranian arms meant for the Houthi militia. Government forces defend Houthi attack in Ma'rib province. This is the end of the news. It was Rushan Fuad. Thank you for watching.